Lord, please, just one son. That's all I'm asking for. And I'll be thankful for the rest of my life.
Welcome to Deeper Love Story Hub. If you love emotional, inspiring, and life-changing stories like this one, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story. Your support helps this channel grow and bring more meaningful stories to life. Mercy had waited for years to have children of her own, crying silently at night, but she never gave up hope. She trusted God, and that belief carried her through the long, lonely years of waiting. Madam Mercy knelt on the cold church floor. Tears ran down her face as she prayed alone in the quiet building. She whispered, "Lord, please, just one son, and I will be thankful for the rest of my life." Her heart felt heavy, but she kept holding on to her faith. She had been married for 6 years, and for all those years, her home had been too quiet. She dreamed of the sound of little feet running across the floor, but every month she faced the same disappointment. Mercy was a kind and wealthy woman. She and her husband, Gabriel, owned many things. Gabriel was a big car dealer who imported cars from far away. He was well known and respected by everyone in the city. Mercy owned a very big supermarket that everyone called Come Again Supermarket. She worked very hard, and she was always good to the people who worked for her. She had maids and helpers at home, but her heart was still sad. Even with all the money and the nice things, she felt like something very important was missing. Every single month, Mercy would go to the orphanage to visit the children who had no parents. She would bring them food, clothes, and toys. She loved to see them smile, but when she went back home, she would cry in her room. She tried to be quiet so her husband would not hear her, but Gabriel was a very loving man. He would often come to her and wipe her tears. He would hold her close and tell her that God had a plan for them. "Don't give up, Mercy," he would say. "God will give us our own children in his own time." Gabriel believed this with all his heart, and he encouraged her to keep trusting. Some people in the city were not very kind. They did not know the couple's true hearts. They whispered many things behind their backs. They said that Gabriel had done something bad to get his wealth and that God was punishing them by not giving them children. These words hurt Mercy, but she tried to ignore them. She knew that her life was in God's hands. Her daily routine was busy. She spent her days at the big supermarket, making sure everything was running well. She helped many people, and she always prayed for others. At home, she had a maid named Rosemary. Mercy treated Rosemary like a younger sister. She trusted her completely. She shared her secrets, her dreams, and even her sadness about not having children. Mercy did not know that Rosemary was not a true friend. Rosemary would listen to everything, but her heart was full of jealousy. She looked at the nice house, the expensive clothes, and the life that Mercy had, and she wanted it all for herself. Mercy did not know that her kindness would soon be tested. She kept waiting for her miracle. She prayed every morning before she started her work. She prayed every evening before she went to sleep. She believed that God was a good God and that he heard her prayers. Even when the days felt long and the silence in her home felt loud, she chose to trust. She went back to the church floor again and again, pouring out her heart to the one who she knew could change everything. She did not know what the future held, or that the path would become much harder before it got better, but she stayed strong. She believed that if she just kept waiting and kept praying, her miracle would eventually come. She did not know that the waiting was part of a bigger story, one that would change her life and the lives of her children forever. She kept praying, one day at a time, keeping her faith alive in the middle of the silence. Rosemary was a young woman who worked in the big house for Mercy and Gabriel. At first, she seemed like a very good helper. She did her chores well, and she was always polite when she spoke to her boss. Mercy, who had a heart full of love and trust, grew very fond of her. She began to see Rosemary as a younger sister. She would sit with her and talk about the long days and the sadness of not having a baby to hold. Mercy told her all the secrets of her heart, never thinking that the girl was listening for something else. Rosemary did not have a heart like Mercy. While she worked, she watched everything. She looked at the expensive cars in the garage and the fine clothes hanging in the closets. She saw the money that Gabriel brought home, and she felt a deep, dark green envy. She thought about how much better her own life could be if she lived in the big bedroom instead of the small room for the help. She wanted the nice things that Mercy had, and she wanted the life that Mercy had built with her husband. One day, Mercy had to go away on a short trip. She went to the United Kingdom for 5 days with her friends. She thought the house would be safe because she trusted Rosemary and Gabriel so much. But when Mercy was gone, Rosemary started her secret plan. She started to dress more nicely and act in ways that were not right. She saw that Gabriel was sad because his wife was away and he missed the warmth of their home. Instead of helping him, Rosemary decided to use the chance to win him over. She acted kind and sweet, and she made sure to be near him all the time. She did not act like a maid anymore. She acted like someone who wanted to be the lady of the house. Gabriel was a man who loved his wife, but he was also a man who was very lonely. He missed having children, and the silence in the house was very hard for him to bear. Rosemary knew this, and she used his sadness against him. She whispered soft words to him and made him feel important. She made him forget his promises and his love for Mercy. Slowly, the walls between them began to fall. Gabriel started to fall for the tricks that the young maid was playing. He began to spend time with her when he should have been working or resting. Rosemary was very happy with how things were going. She felt like she was winning a game. She did not care about Mercy, who was away and thinking of home. She only cared about her own goal. She wanted to take Mercy's place and become the one in charge. She knew that if she could stay close to Gabriel, she could change everything. She began to walk around the house with her head held high, looking at all the things she hoped would soon be hers. She would sit in the living room and imagine herself as the boss, telling others what to do. When Mercy came back from her trip, she noticed nothing. She was so happy to be home that she did not see the change in her husband or her helper. She walked into the house with a smile, glad to see everyone. She gave Rosemary a gift from her trip, never knowing that the girl had been working against her the whole time. Mercy went back to her routine, praying for her miracle and working at her store, while the danger was growing right inside her own walls. Rosemary kept playing the part of a loyal friend, but her heart was full of a plan to push Mercy out. The house, which had once been a place of love and trust, was now holding a secret. The trap was set, and Mercy had no idea that her world was about to change in a way that would break her heart into pieces. Rosemary waited for the right time to strike, making sure that her secret plans stayed hidden from everyone who lived there. The months that followed were full of dark secrets. Every afternoon, after Mercy left for her big supermarket, Gabriel would come back home early to begin an affair with Rosemary. He thought he was being clever, but the truth was growing every single day. On 2 separate occasions, Gabriel even brought Rosemary into the beautiful matrimonial bed he shared with his wife, showing Mercy no respect at all. Rosemary began to act differently. She did not want to clean or cook anymore. She started to walk around like she was the queen of the house. Mercy noticed that things were changing, but she could not understand why. She still tried to be kind, but Rosemary would only look at her with cold eyes and a small, mean smile. Soon, the truth could not be hidden anymore. Rosemary was going to have a baby. When Mercy found out, her heart felt like it was breaking into 1,000 tiny pieces. She could not believe that the husband she loved and the helper she trusted had done this to her. She felt hurt, angry, and very lonely. Mercy told their pastor about it, and he sent for Gabriel. Mercy and Gabriel went to their church to talk to their pastor. She hoped he could help her fix the mess, but Gabriel was not ready to listen. He was happy about the baby, and he did not care about the pain he had caused his wife. When the pastor tried to tell him that his affair and his actions were wrong, Gabriel became very angry. He shouted that God had finally blessed him with a child, and he called the baby a gift from heaven. He did not seem to care that he had broken his vows to Mercy. After that day, the house became a very hard place to live. Gabriel stopped sleeping in the same room as Mercy. He moved into the room with Rosemary, telling everyone he had to stay there to take care of his unborn child. Mercy was left all alone in the big bedroom they used to share. Every night, she could hear them laughing and talking through the walls. It was like a sharp knife in her heart. To make things even worse, Rosemary started to treat Mercy with no respect at all. She would walk past Mercy without saying a word, or she would talk to the other maids about how Mercy was just a barren woman. She used that word to hurt Mercy on purpose. She wanted everyone to know that she was the one who could give Gabriel a child. Mercy spent many nights sitting in her room, crying until she had no tears left. She felt like her own house had become a prison. She saw her husband change into a man she did not know anymore. He ignored her whenever she tried to speak to him, as if she were a ghost or a stranger. He only had eyes for the baby that was growing inside the maid. Mercy felt small and unloved, but she still kept her faith in God. She did not know why this was happening to her, but she kept praying for strength to make it through the next day. 9 months went by very slowly. When the day finally came, Rosemary gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Everyone in the house was excited, except for Mercy. She watched from the corner of her heart as Gabriel held his new son with joy. Mercy wanted to reach out and hold the baby, too, because she loved children so much, but Rosemary was very mean. She would not let Mercy touch the baby even for a second. She told everyone that Mercy was going to hurt her child, which was a terrible lie. Mercy was a woman of love, and she would never hurt anyone. She tried to tell her husband that Rosemary was acting wrong, but Gabriel would just walk past her. He looked at her as if she were nobody. He did not care about her feelings anymore. Mercy realized that she was all alone in her own home, and the life she had worked so hard to build was slipping through her fingers. The house was now full of the sounds of a new baby, but for Mercy, it was only full of silence and sadness. She kept her head down and kept praying, waiting for the day when God would show her what to do next. Time moved on, and life in the house grew colder for Mercy. 2 years passed, and Rosemary gave birth to a baby girl whom they named Princess. Now, Rosemary had 2 children, and she used them to push Mercy further away. She acted like the true queen of the house, and Gabriel did nothing to stop her. He was so busy with his new family that he seemed to forget the woman who had been by his side for so long. Mercy felt as if she was living in a house that did not belong to her anymore. She was treated like a stranger in her own home, and the pain in her heart was almost too much to bear. One morning, Mercy decided she could not take the sadness anymore. She woke up before the sun came up and went to the church. The church was empty and quiet. She walked to the front and knelt down on the hard, wooden floor. She did not ask for money, or for a bigger house, or for her husband to change his ways. She just wanted something that would fill the empty space in her life. She prayed with every bit of hope she had left in her soul. "Lord," she whispered into the quiet air, "I have waited a long time. Please, just one son, and I will be grateful for the rest of my life." She stayed there for a long time, pouring out her tears and her dreams to God. After she finished her prayer, something special happened. She felt a warm, peaceful feeling wash over her. It was as if God was whispering to her heart that he had heard every single word. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and walked out of the church with a new feeling of hope. She felt lighter, and for the first time in many years, she felt like her life was not over yet. 2 months later, something changed in the house. Gabriel and Rosemary had a big fight. It was a loud and angry argument that made the whole house shake. Gabriel was so upset that he stopped sleeping in Rosemary's room. That night, he walked to the room where Mercy was sleeping alone. It was the first time in a very long time that he had come back to her. He did not say much, but he stayed. 2 weeks after that night, Mercy felt different. She went to see a doctor, and the news made her heart jump with joy. She was pregnant. When the 9 months were over, God did something truly wonderful. Mercy gave birth to healthy twins, a boy and a girl. They were the most beautiful babies she had ever seen. She named the boy Caleb and the girl Precious. When she held them in her arms, she knew that God had answered her prayer in a way that was even better than she had imagined. She did not just get one son, she got a son and a daughter to love. She promised herself that she would teach them to love God and to always be kind, no matter what happened in their lives. The house was suddenly filled with the sweet sounds of her own children, and Mercy knew that her long wait was finally over. Her miracle was finally here, and she thanked God for the beautiful gift of Caleb and Precious. The years that followed were the happiest of Mercy's life. Caleb and Precious grew up to be kind, smart, and full of joy. They were like little rays of sunshine in a house that was often dark with sadness. Mercy spent every waking moment teaching them about God's love. She wanted them to know that no matter how mean Rosemary was or how distant their father became, they were never truly alone. She read them stories from the Bible and taught them how to pray with a true heart. Caleb was a brave protector for his sister, and Precious was a sweet girl who loved to help her mother around the house. They did not understand why their father treated them differently than he treated Joshua and Princess, but Mercy made sure they always felt loved. She was their safe place in a very hard world. Then came a day that changed everything forever. It was a normal morning, and Mercy had to run some errands for her supermarket. She kissed Caleb and Precious on their foreheads and promised to be back before dinner. She smiled at them, her eyes shining with love, and walked out the door. The twins watched her leave from the window, waving until the car disappeared down the street. It was the last time they would ever see her smile. Later that afternoon, a loud knock at the front door shook the house. When Gabriel opened it, he saw 2 police officers standing on the porch. Their faces were sad, and they held their hats in their hands. As they spoke, the world seemed to stop moving. Mercy's car had been in a terrible accident on the highway. There was nothing the doctors could do to save her. When Gabriel told the children, the sound of their crying filled the entire house. It was a sound of pure, broken hearts. Precious could not eat for 2 days, and she would not leave her mother's empty room. She just sat on the bed and cried until she had no tears left. Before Mercy had left that day, she had a strange feeling. She had gone to see her lawyer to talk about her secret estate. She knew that Rosemary and Gabriel were not good people, and she was worried about what would happen to her children if she were gone. She willed everything she had to Caleb and Precious, and she told the lawyer to give it to them only when they turned 23. She wanted to make sure they were safe even after she was gone. Now, that secret was all she had left for them. The house became a very lonely place. Without Mercy, the kindness was gone, and the darkness began to close in. Caleb had to grow up very fast. He wiped his sister's tears and promised to protect her, just like his mother would have wanted. He became her big brother and her best friend. They had lost their protector, their teacher, and their biggest fan. They were now all alone in a house full of people who did not want them. They did not know it then, but their life of suffering had just begun. The only thing they had left to hold on to was the prayer their mother had taught them. They knelt down on the cold floor in their room, just like Mercy used to do, and began to pray for the strength to survive. After their mother died, the big house felt like a cold and dark place. Caleb and Precious were still just children, but their life changed in a blink. Rosemary was now the one in charge of everything. She stopped acting like a kind helper and showed her true, mean heart. She wanted to make sure that Caleb and Precious knew they were not wanted. She told her own children, Joshua and Princess, that they were the kings and queens of the house, while the twins were just there to serve them. Every morning, the twins had to wake up before the sun was even up. While Joshua and Princess were still sleeping in their soft, warm beds, Caleb and Precious had to start their work. They had to sweep the floors, wash the dishes, and scrub the laundry until their hands were red and sore. Rosemary would watch them from her chair, always finding something to complain about. If a floor was not clean enough, she would make them do it all over again. She called them names that hurt their feelings and told them they were useless. Joshua and Princess lived a very different life. When they woke up, they would walk into the kitchen and demand their breakfast. They would throw their dirty clothes on the floor and tell the twins to pick them up. They spent their days playing games, watching television, or going out to have fun with their friends. They never had to lift a finger to help around the house. When they made a mess, they would just laugh and walk away, knowing that Caleb or Precious would be there to clean it up. It was very unfair, but the twins did not say a word. Caleb would look at his sister and give her a small nod, telling her to stay strong. Their father, Gabriel, did not seem to see what was happening. He was often away on his work trips or busy with his own business. When he was home, he would only listen to what Rosemary told him. If the twins tried to tell him how tired they were or how mean Rosemary was being, he would just wave his hand and tell them to stop complaining. He was too blinded by the lies Rosemary told him. He did not treat them like his own children anymore. He treated them like they were nothing more than servants who lived in his house. Caleb became very good at protecting Precious. When Rosemary would yell at his sister, Caleb would stand in front of her to take the blame. He would take the extra chores so that Precious could rest for a few minutes. They both missed their mother more than words could say. Every night, they would crawl into their small beds, tired and hungry, and whisper prayers to God. They asked for the strength to keep going. They knew that their mother had loved them very much, and they promised each other that they would not let the meanness of the house break their hearts. They held on to the love their mother had left behind and waited for the day that things would finally get better. Life for Caleb and Precious became even harder when their father, Gabriel, walked into their small room one evening. He had a stern look on his face that made the twins feel cold with worry. He told them that things were tough and money was tight. He said that he could no longer afford to pay the high school fees for their private school. Even though Caleb and Precious were very smart and always had top grades, Gabriel did not care about their learning. He took them out of the school they loved and sent them to a public school instead. The new school was very different. The classrooms were crowded, and there were not enough books for everyone to share. Many of the students were not as focused on their studies as Caleb and Precious were. But the twins were determined to keep their mother's dream alive. They knew that their education was the only way they would ever be able to build a better future for themselves. Even though they were tired from all the chores they did at home, they would stay up late by the dim light of a small lamp to study their notes. They helped each other with their homework and promised that they would not let their grades slip, no matter how hard life got. At home, things grew even more unfair. Joshua and Princess did not have to worry about school fees or studying. Gabriel sent them away to go to university in another country. It cost a lot of money, but he did not mind paying for it. He told everyone how proud he was of Joshua and Princess, but he never said a kind word to Caleb or Precious. The twins watched as their step-siblings packed their fancy bags and got ready for their big adventures. It hurt to see how differently they were treated, but Caleb and Precious kept their heads held high. When the holidays came around, the house was filled with noise. Joshua and Princess would come back home to visit, acting like they owned the place. They would stay out late at night to go to clubs and smoke, while Caleb and Precious were stuck inside doing all the work. Joshua would often laugh at the twins, making fun of their clothes or the school they attended. Princess would ignore them completely, acting as if they were not even there. Through it all, the twins stayed strong. They did not fight back with mean words. They remembered the prayer their mother had taught them, and they prayed for their father to see the truth. They prayed for their step-siblings to find better paths. Even when they were hungry or their feet ached from working all day, they did not give up. They were becoming strong young adults who knew that their worth did not come from their father's money or their stepmother's approval. They knew that God saw their hard work, and they kept pushing forward, trusting that their time for a better life would come. Their intelligence and their faith were their greatest weapons, and no amount of hard work at home could take that away from them. The holidays were supposed to be a time of joy, but for Caleb and Precious, they were the hardest times of the year. When Joshua and Princess returned from their university abroad, the house changed instantly. The air felt heavy with the scent of expensive perfume and smoke. Joshua would arrive with his friends, and they would turn the living room into a place for loud parties. They played loud music, laughed at jokes that were not funny, and left trash everywhere they went. Princess walked around with her nose in the air, treating the house like a hotel, and the twins like the staff who worked there. Gabriel was always so happy to see his real children. He would give them money to spend and praise them for things they did not even work for. He ignored Caleb and Precious as if they were just part of the furniture. Rosemary loved this time, too. She made sure that the twins were kept busy from morning until night. She would come into their room while they were trying to rest and demand that they go scrub the kitchen or wash the cars. She made it clear that their job was to make life easy for Joshua and Princess. Caleb and Precious had to work double time. They cleaned up after the late-night parties, picking up bottles and cleaning stains off the expensive rugs. If they moved too slowly, Joshua would make fun of them. He would call them names and laugh at their simple clothes. It hurt to hear him speak that way, but Caleb always took his sister by the hand and pulled her away. He did not want her to cry in front of them. "Don't let them see you hurt," Caleb would whisper. "They want us to feel small, but God made us big." One evening, after a long day of cleaning, the twins were sitting in the kitchen. They had not had much to eat, and they were very tired. Princess walked in, looking for a snack, and dropped a glass on the floor on purpose. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. She looked at Precious and said, "Clean that up. And be careful, or I will tell Dad you were playing around." Precious looked at the glass, her eyes filled with tears, but she did not argue. She just went to get the broom. Caleb felt a fire of anger in his chest, but he knew he had to stay calm. If he fought back, Rosemary would find a way to punish them even more. The twins felt like outsiders in their own home. During dinner, the family would sit at the big table, eating a feast, while Caleb and Precious stayed in the kitchen. They could hear the family laughing and talking about their fun trips and their plans for the future. Nobody asked if the twins were hungry or if they had a good day at school. It was as if they did not exist. But even in those lonely moments, the twins had each other. They would share a small piece of bread and talk about their dreams. They dreamed of finishing school and moving far away where they could be free. They held on to the secret hope that their hard work would not go to waste. The tension in the big house had been building for years, but one rainy afternoon, it finally broke. Gabriel had been acting strange for weeks, often staying in his office and looking at old papers. He had started to feel a small doubt deep in his heart about the children he had been raising as his own. Something about the way Rosemary talked to her friends on the phone had made him wonder. He decided to find out the truth once and for all. He told Joshua and Princess that he wanted to take them to the hospital for a routine checkup to test their genotype. He acted very calm, but he had already made a secret plan with the doctor. Without the children noticing, he asked the doctor to perform a DNA test to see if he was truly their father. When the results came back a few days later, Gabriel sat in his office for a long time. The paper in his hand told him something he did not expect. It said that Joshua and Princess were not his children at all. He felt his head spin. He had given Rosemary everything. He had sent her kids to school abroad, and he had treated them like royalty, all while he had ignored the children who had actually been born to his own wife. He felt like a fool. The anger that rose up inside him was bigger than anything he had ever felt before. He stood up and stormed out of his office, his face red with rage. He did not care about being quiet or polite anymore. He marched into the living room where Rosemary was sitting. She was busy looking at some new clothes she had bought with Gabriel's money. When she saw the look on his face, her smile faded away. Gabriel threw the paper onto the table in front of her. "What is this?" he shouted, his voice shaking the whole house. Rosemary looked at the paper, and her face turned pale. She tried to say something, but no words came out. She knew her secret was out. She had lied to him from the very beginning. She had used him to get a better life, and she had tricked him into raising someone else's children. Gabriel began to pace around the room. He felt like he had been living in a dream that had turned into a nightmare. He thought about Caleb and Precious. He thought about how he had treated them like servants, making them work all day while he spoiled Rosemary's children. He felt a deep shame wash over him. He realized that he had been so busy listening to Rosemary's lies that he had forgotten to be a good father. He had pushed away the twins, even though they had always been respectful and kind. The more he thought about it, the more his anger grew. He looked at Rosemary, and for the first time, he saw her for who she really was, a greedy woman who had used him for his money. Rosemary started to cry, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of fear. She knew that her time in the big house was coming to an end. She tried to tell Gabriel that she had done it because she loved him, but he did not believe a word. He told her that she was a liar and a thief. He had spent years protecting her, and she had spent years making a fool of him. He did not want to hear any more excuses. He felt like he had been living in a house of cards that was finally falling down. Caleb and Precious were in the kitchen cleaning when they heard the loud shouting. They froze, not knowing what was happening. They could hear their father's voice booming through the halls, angrier than they had ever heard it before. They felt a sense of fear, but also a sense of wonder. They did not know what was going on, but they knew that everything was about to change. The truth had finally come out, and the walls of the house were shaking. Gabriel was a man who had finally opened his eyes, and he was ready to change the way he lived his life. He looked at the twins as they stood in the doorway, and for the first time, he did not see servants. He saw two children who had been hurt by his own mistakes. He did not know how to fix it yet, but he knew that the lies were gone, and the truth had left him with a heavy heart and a very difficult path ahead. The house was quiet for a moment, and then the real storm began. Gabriel did not wait for the sun to rise before he made his choice. His heart was filled with a cold, hard fire. He walked to the door of the bedrooms where Joshua and Princess were sleeping. He woke them up with a loud bang on the door and told them to get their things and leave his house right now. Joshua and Princess were confused and scared. They did not understand why their father was acting this way. They looked at Rosemary, who was standing in the hallway crying, but she could not help them. Gabriel told them that he knew the truth about who their real father was. He said that he was done paying for their expensive lives and that they had no place in his home anymore. The twins, Caleb and Precious, stood at the top of the stairs, watching in silence. They were shocked by what they were seeing. Their father was throwing out the children he had always loved and spoiled. Rosemary screamed and begged him to have mercy, but Gabriel's heart was like stone. He pointed to the door and told them to go. Joshua and Princess tried to argue, but Gabriel was stronger than they had ever seen him. He told them that they had spent years living off his money while he had been a fool, and that the time for games was over. Within an hour, Joshua and Princess were standing on the street in the dark of the early morning. They had no money, no car, and nowhere to go. They were dressed in the fancy clothes they had bought with Gabriel's money, but those clothes could not help them now. Rosemary was thrown out with them. Gabriel locked the heavy front door behind them, and the sound of the metal bolt sliding into place echoed through the neighborhood. They were finally gone. The house, which had once felt like a place of secrets and meanness, suddenly felt very still. Caleb and Precious moved slowly toward the front door, not sure what their father would do next. Gabriel turned to look at them. His face was tired, and he looked much older than he had just a few hours before. He did not say he was sorry, and he did not hug them. He just looked at them with eyes that seemed to be seeing them for the very first time. He told them that he had made many mistakes. He said that he had allowed greed to blind him, and that he had been a terrible father to them. He did not ask for their love, but he did ask them to stay in the house, even though he knew he had lost the right to be called their protector. The twins felt a strange mix of feelings. They were happy that the meanness was gone, but they were also sad to see how much their family had fallen apart. They had lived their whole lives wanting their father to see them, and now he was looking at them with nothing but regret. Caleb took Precious's hand. He knew that the house was now empty of Rosemary and her children, but it was also empty of the joy they had once hoped for. Gabriel went to his room and shut the door, leaving the twins alone in the big, quiet hallway. They looked around at the house that had been a place of hard work and tears. They had been treated like servants, and now the people who treated them that way were out on the street. It was a victory, but it was a quiet one. The twins went to their small room and knelt down on the floor. They prayed for their father, and they prayed for Joshua and Princess, who were now out in the big, scary world with nothing at all. They had learned that when you do wrong things to get what you want, you end up losing everything in the end. Caleb and Precious were still there, still holding on to their faith, and still waiting to see what God would do with the rest of their lives. The long night of their suffering was finally over, but they knew that the next chapter of their life would be one of healing and starting fresh. Life on the streets was a harsh lesson for Rosemary, Joshua, and Princess. After being thrown out of the big house with nothing, they were forced to find a new way to live. With the little money Rosemary had managed to hide away, they rented a very small, dark room in a crowded part of town. It was a far cry from the luxury they once knew, and the space was barely big enough for the three of them. Rosemary used the last of her savings to open a tiny shop on the corner, selling just a few items like bread, soap, and tea. It was a humble, difficult life, and it was a long way from the wealth she had stolen. Every day, Rosemary worked from sunrise to sunset in her small shop, but there was never enough money to go around. She had built her whole life on lies, and now those lies had finally caught up with her. Every person in the neighborhood who had once respected her now looked at her with cold eyes. They knew the story of how she had tricked a good man and treated two innocent children like slaves. The shame was everywhere she went. Joshua and Princess were very angry. They had never worked a day in their lives, and they did not know how to survive without servants to do everything for them. They constantly blamed Rosemary for their situation, and the arguments in their tiny, cramped room grew loud and bitter, making their nights together feel like a prison. The truth about Rosemary's life spread like a fire. Everyone learned that she had been nothing but a maid who wanted to take a place that was not hers. They learned that she had tried to ruin the lives of Caleb and Precious. The news of her downfall made the townspeople realize that the twins were the ones who had been truly strong all along. Rosemary had no friends left, and she had no way to hide her past anymore. Her life of trickery had left her with nothing but a broken family and a heart full of regret. While they struggled to make ends meet at the little shop, Rosemary's own past started to hurt her even more. She saw how Joshua and Princess had grown up to be just like her, selfish and mean. They did not even care that she was exhausted from working all day. They only cared about themselves and the lack of comfort in their new home. She realized that she had taught them all the wrong things. She had thought that by being mean and lying, she would be happy, but she had only succeeded in making her own children resent her. The pride she once had was gone, replaced by the heavy weight of the truth. She was now a stranger in her own town, an outcast who had once tried to own everything and ended up owning nothing but a tiny, dusty shop. Caleb and Precious, from a distance, heard how Rosemary's life had completely fallen apart. They did not feel happy about it, and they did not want to laugh at her pain. They were children of God, and they knew that revenge was not their job. They felt a strange kind of pity for the woman who had caused them so much sadness. They kept praying for her, not because they wanted her back in their lives, but because they hoped that one day she would find the truth and stop living in her web of lies. For Rosemary, the world was now very small and very dark. She sat in the back of her little shop and finally understood that the most important things in life, love, honesty, and kindness, could not be bought with money or stolen with lies. She was left with the silence of her tiny room, knowing that she had thrown away the only true peace she could have ever had. The house was quiet, but it was no longer a place of fear. Caleb and Precious finally felt the weight of the past start to lift from their shoulders. They had lived through years of sadness, cold words, and hard labor, but they had never let their hearts turn bitter. They remembered every prayer their mother had whispered over them, and they realized that those prayers were the foundation they were now standing on. Gabriel remained in his room for many days, his spirit broken by the truth of his own actions, but the twins decided to take control of their own path. They knew that their mother had left a secret behind for them, something to make sure they were never lost, and it was time to find out what that was. Caleb went to the lawyer that his mother had visited before her accident. The lawyer has come to their school many times to visit the twin. He always give them money. He was a good friend to their late mom. He gave them his phone number and his office address. The man was kind and looked at the twins with a soft smile. He handed them the papers that Mercy had kept hidden, the papers that would change everything. Their mother had been very smart and very careful. She had placed the ownership of the supermarket and the house into a special account for her children. She knew that Rosemary and Gabriel might try to take it all away, so she had made sure that it was protected by law. When the twins saw what their mother had done, they both started to cry. She had planned for their future even when she was suffering, and she had made sure they would have a way to live when she was no longer there. With their mother's inheritance, Caleb and Precious started to build a brand new life. They decided to sell the old house that was full of so many sad memories. They wanted a place where they could feel safe, a place where they could wake up without worrying about chores or mean words. They found a lovely, bright house with a garden filled with flowers, just like the ones their mother loved. They took care of each other, making sure that their bond stayed stronger than anything the world could throw at them. Caleb went back to school to finish his studies, and Precious started helping at the supermarket, using the kindness she had learned from her mother to lead the workers. People in the city were amazed by the twins. They saw how Caleb and Precious had gone from being treated like servants to becoming young leaders. The twins were always ready to help those who were in need, especially the orphans that their mother had loved to visit. They opened a special home for children who had no parents, making sure that every child felt the same love that Mercy had given to them. They were known for their generosity and their strong faith. Everyone knew that they did not get to this place by luck. They had earned it through their patience and their love for God. Caleb and Precious never stopped praying. Every morning, they would sit together in their living room and talk to God, thanking Him for the path He had set for them. They had learned that when life is hard, you must keep your eyes on the light. They had learned that even if you are treated badly by others, you can still choose to be good. Their story became a lesson for everyone who knew them. They were the proof that no matter how dark the night might be, the morning would always come for those who keep the faith. As they looked out over their beautiful new garden, Caleb and Precious felt a deep peace in their hearts. They had survived the storm, and they had come out even stronger. They were not just victors over the past, they were builders of a better future. They knew that their mother was watching them from heaven, smiling at the way they had honored her memory. Their lives were a song of victory, a song that started with a simple prayer on a cold church floor and ended in a life full of love, grace, and light. They had found their way, and they were finally home in every way that truly mattered.